My name is Jacob Stoops.
And I'm Jeff Luella.
And you're listening to the Page 2 podcast.
This is our podcast about the people of the SEO industry.
We chronicle the real-life stories, experiences, challenges, and advice from some of the most amazing people in the business. In this episode 50, the Season 2 finale, we talk with Dan Leibson, Vice President of Search at Local SEO Guide. We talk about his passion for gardening, anything green, his family, and his goal to retire by 45. From a career perspective, we cover Dan's background doing bulletin boards in the early 90s, being online and connected in his early days, his political science background, and his decision on whether to go to law school versus a career in marketing, why SEO ended up being the best decision for him, and more. In the news, we talk about Google's announcement that Google Shopping is free so brands can add products, and Whitespark's introduction of a Yext replacement service. Finally, we deep dive into local SEO strategy, talk about the most important aspects of a good local SEO strategy, discuss the good and bad points of various local aggregator services, talk about local SEO misnomers, and more. So get your popcorn ready as we tell Dan's SEO story and have another great roundtable discussion. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 50 of the Page 2 podcast. This is the season finale of season 2. And we made it to episode 50. And I was just saying to Jeff right before we jumped on, I am ready for a break. We've packed 25 episodes into a couple of months. And I just have to say that when we picked that number of episodes, it was partly because season 1 had 25. So I was like, all right, that seems to make sense. Let's do 25 more. And we packed 25 episodes into a much shorter time frame. And I think it's time to go take the summer off after this.
Yeah, my favorite TV show, well, it used to be, it was 24. So we beat them by one more.
That's right. And, as I was saying last episode, in which we were talking about the Godfather, this is the season finale. So I hope that it is super exciting for everybody who is listening. But I can promise you, nobody gets knocked off by the end of this episode. Nobody's going to get killed at the end of the episode. So if that's what you're hoping for, sorry to disappoint you.
Maybe.
Maybe.
You never know, though.
Maybe. So that other voice, that would be Mr. Jeff Luella. And Jeff, how are we doing down there in Georgia today?
That's great. We just lifted our shelter in place for many things. So now it was very specific. I can go bowling, get a tattoo, massage, my haircut, and nails. So I'm hoping to get all those done at one day. No, I'm kidding. Our governor lifted it all with lots of controversy, but not as controversial as drinking bleach or injecting bleach that the president recommended.
It's the new cure. Cure.
UV lights.
Right. Oh, it's almost like we're just living in. It's just a weird world we are living in.
Agreed.
At the moment, it is weird, and it's getting weirder by the day. The more that we are cooped up inside. And last episode, we spent probably 25 minutes talking about coronavirus and related things. So I think we're gonna have a change of pace, and we're not gonna talk about it that much. And not only that, we have a guest. We've got a very amazing guest, Dan Leibson from Local SEO Guide. Dan, thank you for joining us. How's it going?
Going well. Thanks for having me. My nails are done right now. My 5-year-old did them yesterday. I know this is a podcast, so I have blue and white alternating nails right now, just so everyone knows.
Hey, you gotta do whatever makes the kids and the family happy. Especially now that you guys are all kind of crammed in together. You got to do what keeps everything running smoothly.
Absolutely.
And if that means painting your nails as a dad, absolutely, go for it.
My old polish was starting to come off, so it needed to get touched up.
There you go.
Yeah, my kids are at the age now where they don't want to paint my nails anymore. So
you're past that. See, I have not reached that phase. It's either that or my daughter has not shown an interest in painting my nails. I guess I don't know if that means I'm lucky or I don't know what that means. I really don't know.
My oldest daughter's into LED lights, and she just like buys them. Well, she saves up her money, asks, like, she goes on Amazon, picks out the one she wants, and then her whole room looks like a discotheque in there. It's like lights everywhere. They're all blinking and running around, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's like
exactly. But she has AirPods in the whole time, so I have no idea what she's listening to.
Maybe she's gonna cure COVID-19 with her UV discotheque
she
lights.
Probably is.
Right. Oh my goodness. So with this being the last episode, again, this is the last time I'm going to say it. Going into season 3, we're not going to bring this up anymore. But I do want to say thank you. Thank you to all of the listeners. Not only did we reach our listen goal, we exceeded it by 20%. And who knows, by the end of this particular episode, once it gets published and listened to a good bit, maybe that percentage will be much higher. But we do really, really appreciate all of the listens and all of the follows this season and the shout outs on social media. It's been a real pleasure to watch and see the show grow to some degree. And as I say every week, it's not like we're the biggest show ever. I do think once we kind of get done with everything, we'll kind of publish our numbers. You don't often see people publish their actual numbers and kind of put them out there. But we'll do it just for fun. But what I would say is, even though we are a small podcast, we're getting a lot of new listeners, and for those new listeners that are still coming on and discovering our podcast kind of for the first time, what I've been doing at the beginning of every episode is just kind of walking everybody through the format so you know what to expect with the rest of the episodes. So the core of the podcast, it's a little bit different than a regular SEO podcast. There are a fair amount of SEO podcasts out there that are just dedicated towards getting right down into the tactics and the strategy and knowledge sharing and so on and so forth. And we do that to some extent too. However, when I created the podcast now over a year and a half ago, my goal was personally to have a voice in the industry, but to figure out how I could make my voice be unique and have my own kind of angle and value proposition in terms of what I could say that might be a little bit different than what everybody else is saying within the industry. And for me, the biggest thing that I find really interesting, because there isn't a traditional educational system in place for folks going into SEO, which means that everybody kind of just bumps into it by accident from another place and finds it, and then for the people that have been in it a long time, you bump into it and then you go, oh man, this is really cool. I found my passion, and I think exploring those origin stories for me is really compelling, and learning where people in the industry have come from. And then even more so, I like diving into the day-to-day, what it's like, trials and tribulations, what it's like to work as an SEO on agency side, what it's like to work in-house. And then from there, we get into, the experiences, and we share advice, and we talk shop and so on and so forth. And as a listener, it's kind of like being a fly on the wall and listening to what SEOs kind of really talk about when a client leaves the room, for example. Or a stakeholder leaves the room. So it's just real life SEO conversation and real life background and origin stories. For season 2, we brought Jeff on as a co-host, and Jeff has been amazing. I want to let him kind of speak to his experience now that he's 25 episodes in, but we brought Jeff on, and Jeff has been a really good addition to the podcast, and it's been nice to have another voice and another person kind of providing their perspective. Also in season 2, we added 2 segments, one being the news and one being deep dive. Can't promise that the news is going to stay around because we do want this podcast to be somewhat evergreen. However, it is around for at least one more episode, and we're going to talk today a little bit about Google Shopping, and we're going to talk about some local search, which has not been a topic that we've talked about too often. And not only that, the deep dive, especially with Dan on, is going to be local search as well, which, again, we've not talked about that subject very often. We've covered just about every subject, so it's going to be nice to round out the season talking a little bit of local. So, Jeff, anything you want to kind of add to that as we end season 2?
Yeah, no, it's been a fun ride. Didn't know what I was getting into when I first said yes, when you asked me if I wanted to join you, and it's really been it's been exciting, and it's been also great, like meeting so many different people and talking to them. Like I talked to a lot of people on Twitter or in Slack or different types of groups, Discords and stuff. But actually getting them on the microphone and talking to them has really been great. And that's what I really like, is actually interviewing people that I really don't know much about and learning about more about them. So some of the big guys out there, I feel like I know them just from all their postings. But when it comes to someone who's maybe not as well known, it's great to just meet them, understand how they got into SEO. We all have our unique stories, and we're going to hear Dan soon. But I really have been enjoying that part of it. And there is the challenging aspect of trying to get your podcast listened to, trying to show up in some of the rankings, and it's not your traditional SEO stuff there. So trying to figure out why somebody who made one podcast episode about SEO still ranks in the top 10 for SEO podcasts and on Apple, podcasts, but yet hasn't released anything since. But yet we have 50 episodes and we have trouble ranking for it. So still learning that aspect of things. And I feel, we just got to keep cranking them out after a little break. And then, we'll be getting up there soon. So I really enjoyed it. And thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, and I will echo. I have enjoyed. This has been, if for nothing else, a really good excuse to get to know more people. And I came into starting this podcast with the perception of, and everybody that has listened has probably heard my rant on the conference circuit and conference circuit SEOs. And I think I came into this with a certain impression about what those people are like, just because I had a few bad experiences with a few well-known conference circuit SEOs. And I think my opinion has been to some degree kind of flipped on its head, because there have been lots of people that I would say that are on the conference circuit pretty often that have been just the most nice and down-to-earth people. Not what I don't know. I came in with a different perception, and my perception of those types of people have definitely changed for the better. And not only that, this has been a really good opportunity, like you said, to talk to some people that are really well known in the industry, as well as other people that are just coming up in the industry. And we've really focused on trying to have a balance of the two, so that it's not just the same old voices getting regurgitated over and over and over again, and interjecting some new voices into the conversation has been really nice. All that being said, that is enough of me and Jeff talking, and our guest has been waiting silently while we kind of do our end of season 2 spiel. So Dan, we really, really appreciate that. And I guess tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Oh, no, it's all good. It's all good. Please don't murder me. I didn't know that this was the season finale and that you were going to sacrifice me.
Pressure.
So
we need you to make our numbers go up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. No pressure. Yeah. So, my name is Dan Leibson. I run the team over at Local SEO Guide. We're a boutique search consultancy, yada, yada, yada. We do SEO stuff and or things. I like going to conferences and buying some of my friends' drinks. That's what I always say is I will buy people booze. So,
Nice.
Yeah, that's me. What can I tell you guys about me? I like your format, right? So I don't want to.
How did you become the booze guy? You I guess are the fun guy at conferences then.
I would hope so. I don't want to be the unfun person. That sucks.
Right. So I guess take us back to the beginning. Who are you as a person? If somebody were to get to know you outside of SEO, what would you tell them, and how did you get into it?
Yeah, I would probably, if somebody asked me something about me as a person, I probably wouldn't mention SEO at all, right? I don't want them to have to explain to them how I don't work for Google or what SEO is or, all the usual things that go along with that. I don't know. Let's see. I am a gardener by choice. I post a lot on Twitter about my backyard and been farming. I really enjoy SEO, but so this is not a thing a lot of people in the space know about me, but Andrew knows this about me, is I want to retire by 45, or at least be able to do whatever the fuck I want to by the time I'm 45 and own a farm. Sorry, please edit that out. I didn't.
That's okay.
It's okay.
Forgot podcast. No MA, NSFW.
Right.
But yeah, so, I would actually kind of talk about that kind of stuff. One of my big kind of passions is doing anything generally green. I really I have a couple friends trying to do various green related businesses, either commercial, vermicomposting and other types of agribusiness stuff. And so I do some side advising to them. I think that's much more fun than to say I do green startup advising, which is a really fancy way of saying you help your college friends figure out what they're doing in life. So yeah.
And then you, through my Twitter sleuthing, it looks like you're also a new dad.
For the second time. I have a 14-month-old. Yeah, 14-month-old and a 5-year-old. The 5-year-old did the nails.
Yeah.
So the 14-month didn't.
Yeah, no, most definitely not. She is not walking yet. Yeah, of course, parenting would be a core thing of my life, particularly now in COVID land. So you both had mentioned that you have kids. Obviously, that is never end. Not like it ever ends anyway, but now it just literally never ends with minimal separation. I'm sure this is a nice break for you.
Yeah. Going to work actually has been my break. So I have 6, almost 7-year-old. I've got a 4-year-old, and I've got an 11-month-old, and also yeah, right. Thank you. Yeah, they're awesome. We've been spending a lot of time together, and not only that, between myself and my wife, who's a teacher who is now working from home. We're both working the regular work weeks, homeschooling now. We don't normally homeschool, right? We sent them to public school and preschool, but because everything's online learning, well, guess what? We're handling a lot of their schooling now and taking care of the little ones. So my life is just absolutely, honestly, just batshit insane for the most part. And the big things that we're considering doing in lockdown these days, it's literally let's go take a drive. Let's just go drive anywhere in the car, because we haven't been out of the house. I'm the only one that's been out of the house in weeks, and that's just to go to the grocery store, which is 2 minutes away from our house. So yeah, to say we're going stir crazy is a little bit of an understatement for sure.
So can you teach your kids how to do redirect mapping? We can use them as some free help.
Hey, they're learning their letters and learning how to read, so it's only a matter of time. They already almost use the computer better than me. I know they use iPads and phones better than me. And the crazy with the littlest one is if he ever gets a hold of our phone, which he does from time to time because he's now becoming mobile, he gets it. And like, you can see his little finger moving the phone. And I'm like, dude, you're 11 months old and you already understand how to work this. This is scary. The way that they understand how to work technology, even at 11 months old, is a little crazy. But anyways, back to you, Dan. SEO. So obviously you've been doing it for a while. Where did it start? How did you fall into it?
Randomly, and also kind of like always. I don't know. I know that you've talked to some of my peers on here, and I know how some of I've both heard the episodes and know how some of those people have gotten started. And so, like, I started out doing bulletin boards and stuff like that back in like the early 90s, right? I was like super online and connected, like from the time I was like in like fifth grade.
Nice.
And so, you know, way back in the day, you know, on Gmail, when Gmail launched, on the internet when I was in high school. My academic background is in political science, and I have a graduate degree in political science, so nothing to do with SEO in any way, shape, or form, right? But yeah, I just have like a lot of online experience. And then so like in the mid-aughts, I was making a decision to either go into law school, take LSATs and be a lawyer, or I had like done a bunch of like internships and stuff like that, and externships doing social media for organizations, nonprofits, blah, 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 to see if I could get a job doing that and make money. And it turns out I could. And boy, that law school class was terrible. So I'm really glad I didn't do that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, looking back upon that, do you feel like you went the correct route for yourself?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Totally and completely. I have friends that like were in that law school class that like have jobs and are doing well, but like, man, they are that class of 2008 was like, it's like literally the crash, right? It's the lowest job placement of any law school class ever. So, you know, they probably worked their asses off to get there. And we like make things rank higher on Google for a living. So I totally lucked out, right? Like, I garden in my spare time. I don't have to wear a suit. Like,
yeah, that's how I've felt. I feel like I feel so lucky because I fell into it as well. Before I did SEO, like I was literally working at UPS as a package loader, which is like the worst. It's an incredibly intense and difficult job, and it's the only job I ever quit. I don't quit anything, but that job pushed me to my breaking point, and I quit with no plan. And in between that, to make ends meet, I worked 7 days a week as a pet counselor at a pet shop.
That's awesome.
At a pet shop, and I worked at Staples. So I was like, if you've ever seen The Office, I was kind of like Dwight Schrute. Oh God, I love The Office. Anyways, so like there was no plan for me to get into SEO, which is why I find it so lucky sitting here 14 years later. Like, how did that find me? So yeah, I feel much the same way, because it is awesome. It is like, you don't have to, at least for me, I haven't had to go into the office. And when I have had to go into the office, it's an awesome place to be. And you get to work with really great people. You get to work on amazing clients, or if you're in-house, you work with an amazing brand, and you're just working on the internet. It is not an easy job. I say to my wife all the time, as a teacher, she works so much harder than I do. And I don't know if you guys, with your significant others, have that experience where like you feel like other jobs, they just work so much harder, and even it makes me feel even more lucky about the career path I've chosen. And I'm not sure that SEO is going to be a thing in 20 years, and maybe I won't ever retire as an SEO, but for now it's been an amazing ride.
I mean, it's the only industry that's died at least once a year, every year for the last 20 years. It's always dead.
It's like Sanford and Son, where he has the attack. I'm coming to meet you. Yeah.
Yeah, I always think that that's like such an interesting take, right? I think that like the SEO is dead is like such an interesting take, along with the like say it's the other side of the coin with the people who say they like have it dialed in like on SEO, right? Like it's both kind of like equally marketing takes rather than kind of, you know, based in their like jobs or reality that they're going through every day, right? Like you say, Jacob, like this is like the Wild West. Like we're creating stuff on the internet. It honestly is the Wild West in a lot of ways, and maybe not the like most cutting edge of all like digital or performance marketing, right? Like no claims there, but it's on the head of the spear, right? Like, and so, you know, it's great if you can thrive in that, but yeah, it's chaotic, right? And it's very interesting.
Yeah. And then I think about it also in relation to, and for me, the closest is my wife, but anytime I'm feeling stressed out about a particular client situation, and this happens often, SEO is an industry where there can be a lot of stress if you allow there to be. And I have a coworker who for years, and I've worked with him across multiple companies for many, many years. Shout out, his name's Brian Dean. He's not the SEO Brian Dean. He's my Brian Dean. And he always has a way of bringing levity to any rough client situation and I'm going to use this quote. It's, Jake, we're just doing marketing. We're not curing cancer. And that always puts it in perspective for me, and also reminds me of how lucky I am and not to say that marketing isn't important, but especially in times like we're living in now, there are much more important things, which makes me in much more, I would say, impactful things to the world, so to speak. But I do feel incredibly lucky to have found a career where I'm very happy. I'm sure you guys have said you guys are happy. I would hope as well. And we're just doing really cool stuff. But at the same time, anytime I need to be brought back to earth, Brian tells me, Jake, you're not curing cancer. You're just doing SEO. And I'm like, yep, you're right. You're right, Brian.
We have several nurses in the family, nurse practitioners on my wife's side, her siblings, and like the amount of like stress to working hours to like comp packages, like no thank you. Like I agree, you're a better person than me, and your job is way more stressful, and like I would explode, crush like a grape, right? Like so, more power to you, all the power to you, right? Like.
So Dan, how did you get to Local SEO Guide? Where did that start? Where did it come from? What's it like working there?
Yeah, so I was in-house like almost exclusively in the beginning. I lived in LA at the time, and then my wife and I we just got married, wanted to buy a house, and prices in Orange County versus Los Angeles are like giant like a world of difference. I'm from Orange County too, so like I have family here, and so not as many brands or in-house like startup opportunities in OC as there would be in LA, and so I wanted to switch agency side because there was like agency side opportunities here, and so kind of had done that, made it a point to start meeting people. Had met Andrew Shotland, CEO and founder of Local SEO Guide, somewhere along the way through like commenting on his blog. Mike Blumenthal's blog, met him through like this is before like I was really on Twitter. I was like not one of the early SEO Twitter adopters. So I met them through blog comments, and then Andrew approached me one day about getting a referral to help him start up his like from being a solo consultant to having an agency. And I was like, oh no, you should just hire me. And we started chatting, and that was that. That's the Local SEO Guide origin story, or at least my involvement in it, not Andrew's. He has his own.
I find it interesting that you got a job through blog commenting.
Hell yeah. I've hired people through Twitter. Like Twitter is like my number one recruiting strategy these days. It's amazing. Like I get referrals through my head of content was a referral through Twitter. Went to college with David Levitt and John Henry. Used to do work for John Henry. Got referred to by those guys from me on Twitter. Met a bunch of other people that we've hired on Twitter. Taylor Berg, our director of client services, met her on Twitter. Yeah, it's the best. It's the best. You can
That's
vet
funny.
people that want to be at your shop, right? And like, you know what they think and they know what you think, and there's not as much of a disconnect on like how things happen, right? It's transparent. I like it.
It's funny. I didn't get a job because I was told that for the position that I was applying for, I did not have enough Twitter followers to get it. And I was like, really? I mean, I like handle like 30 clients in a row and like to have all
That's
these
the
results.
worst thing ever. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a very high-end SEO guy that in a very big industry that, you know, runs a pretty big company. So it was interesting. It was an interesting comment. And it actually made me like start thinking like, do I really need to take Twitter more seriously? But
No.
I think he also meant, like, I'm not out there speaking. I'm not out there representing and things like that. And for someone who's going to be like their top SEO, he wanted that type of things. And instead of saying, this is stuff that you're kicking ass over here, but we can work on this side. He was just like, I don't think you have enough following for the position I wanted. So I thought it was kind of interesting.
And that's why I give Jeff shit about his number of Twitter followers all the time.
And the funny thing was the person he ended up hiring had less of a following than me and still does. So
It's like you could give people good.
Yeah.
It's like you could give people good research and that are competent at their jobs and understand SEO, and they can talk about it and explain it to other people. They can develop a following and sell things.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Twitter is, like, I agree. Twitter is a great place right now for SEO conversation, and it seems to be where most SEOs play. Not so much on Facebook, although Facebook 10 years ago was kind of the cool place to be, and blogs 10 to 5 to 10 years ago were the place to be and communicate. And Twitter for a while has been that place. But part of me also wonders if we as SEOs are falling a little bit behind in terms of the different platforms, like whether it be Insta or like TikTok or whatever, and if it's just a sign that we're all just old and using like the grandpa platform or the grandma platform, when it comes to thinking about new people entering the industry. Part of me wonders if they realize that SEO Twitter is so vibrant right now, and maybe there's like a younger segment of the population that's getting into SEO and they're doing it on TikTok and doing it somewhere else. And part of me always wonders, it's a good platform, but are we ever at risk of falling behind if we only SEO talk on that on Twitter?
I think I'm going to come out with an SEO dance for TikTok and I'll make all the SEOs do it.
Right.
It's going to be a hit.
There's this woman, she's a digital PR in the UK. I forget her name, but I can find it after this. But she has dropped a couple of amazing TikToks on getting like no follow links from major news publisher. Like when you get a link from a major news publisher, but it's a no follow and stuff like that. It's quite amazing content. We can talk about this at the end when we do the local deep dive, but I'm actually a big proponent of Insta. And I think that there are like a lot of people in the space that do misunderstand Insta's kind of primacy with a certain demographic and a certain market for certain services, and versus Google or whatever. It doesn't matter. And I think I agree with you. I think people sleep on the Insta like crazy. Yep.
Yeah. When I think of it, I'm like, people don't want to see more pictures of me. But maybe that's important. I don't know. It never has occurred to me that I need to maybe someday consider moving over to other platforms. And I'm like, another platform to manage. I can barely handle the ones I do now.
Yeah, no, I think it's as good for depending on your subject too. But if you're a small business and selling things like coffee or doing things like that, like definitely people. As you scroll up, if you have something interesting, you have like a short video about it. I think there's a lot you can do with it. When I used to do focused a lot more on flying drones and stuff like that, I got way more people liking and sharing my Instagram 15-second videos than the full length versions on like YouTube or anything like that. So Insta was really great. And hashtags worked really good on there too for me. So you put in a couple of hashtags and next thing you know, I had like 400 likes and I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
business-specific COVID updates, Insta has by far been the best platform. It's not even close because you can make any visual you want to as long as it's an image and put it out with a text post and have it represent your business, right? So you can update it with hours and things like that and in the bio profile all the time. So it has just been far and away better than things like Google and other platforms. One of my favorites and that I always use, that I specifically like follow on Insta as businesses or local breweries and beer bars, because they put out whatever is new on tap. They make it so that you can order. It's an easy flow of consuming the menu and getting the most up-to-date pieces of information, right? Maybe not for buying like SaaS software or whatever, but like, you can't win them all.
Yeah, I could definitely see where the more visual, where businesses that need to put that out and tend to align a little bit more with the specifics of the platform, with Insta being a little bit more visual in nature. I could definitely see the utility versus my own personal brand and availability to handle it all. Totally.
Yeah. You love him or hate him. Like I Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, whatever you want to call him.
Gary V.
He is, he's everywhere. He's on every platform everywhere. So, but I do love to see how he like kind of sends the same message, but the way he formats it, or at least his team formats it, because I don't think he's there formatting them all in different ways.
Too busy hustling.
He's too busy hustling, but he's got just the way he formats his messages for Instagram compared to Snapchat, compared to Facebook, and compared to Twitter. It's like, it's basically the same message, but he chops it up differently and has different stories. So like on something like Facebook, he's been doing these like Tea with Gary V, like live videos, but then he'll chop some things he set up and then put it over on Instagram, and then he'll do something different on another platform. And it's interesting how I don't know how he has any time to do any of this stuff. I guess when you record yourself 24 hours a day, you get enough content on it, but he's it has so much, like the way he breaks it apart. And again, he's focusing on social out of all this stuff. So, but I use him as like, how would businesses sell themselves? And basically he sells himself as a business. So it's kind of like this, kind of that way, but he's an interesting character to follow. I know a lot of people don't find him, annoying and things like that. And I'm not saying anything about his advice.
I think he's akin to, you just made me think of Neil Patel within the SEO industry. I think that there are some people that just like they're turned off to Neil, turned off to Gary. And obviously Gary's incredibly successful by traditional standards, but there are people that with the message of work 80 hours a week and bro hustle and do all that stuff that does turn off. And I can see that too. Yeah.
He definitely is a good example of a marketing shop, though, right? And the process around it, for sure, right? That's 100%. Like, people don't kind of grok that about VaynerMedia, right? But it's just 100% new media chop shop, right? And it's easy to, much like Neil Patel, right? And it's easy to do when you have somebody that can bring in that level of lead volume. And so, it's the way that they create the lead volume, obviously, like they're the kind of prime people at doing that, right? Like if I had as much lead volume as Neil Patel, right? Like, man, be a richer man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Maybe you just
hit that 45-year-old goal.
Well, maybe y'all need to go online and follow their how-to guides and you could get rich quick.
Yeah, exactly.
So before we move on to the news, Dan, I always like to ask this question just to kind of make it real and bring it like down to earth. So what have been some of your biggest challenges, maybe recently or maybe historically, with being an SEO, working on local, working with clients, anything, big challenges that you've run across?
Yeah, I would say that like my challenges would rarely be kind of about particular SEO problems. It's like taking a remote SEO organization from 2 people to 15 people, building internal processes, hiring, building technical SEO infrastructure, that kind of stuff, right? Like, I think that a lot of client challenges are probably some of the SEO problems are some of the easier challenges in SEO, right? And it's like all the other stuff about like running an SEO business, building an SEO business. That's the stuff that I struggle with most of the time. I don't know about you guys.
So, well, yes and no. There are days where clients sometimes make me want to pull my hair out, but there are definitely days where I'm like, you know what, that is an easy problem to solve. And I am one of those that I personally, if I had to liken myself to like using a sports analogy, like I've been a player for a long time, right? But and that's satisfying, right? There's a certain amount of like adrenaline rush that comes in when you've seen a client implement a recommendation and it's worked and it's driven them more traffic and more business. And that's the part in SEO that hooked me way back in the beginning. But like over the course of my career, where I feel like I've gotten more fulfillment personally and professionally, has been not necessarily being on the front lines, so to speak, working with clients and getting into the day-to-day details, but almost like working behind the scenes to build the infrastructure with which team members can grow and the team can grow and go to market and things like that. That for me has been more fulfilling than anything. And Jeff, I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, no, it's it is interesting where like I do love, and I've been in SEO for a while. I've been working kind of client side in an agency my whole life, at least for the last 20 years. Started off kind of doing design, went into development, and then moved into like accessibility and SEO. And the one thing that I like find the most with it all is, as much as I sometimes want to, pull my hair out, which I think I have because I have no hair. With sometimes the clients,
it's like migrated to your chin.
Yeah, I just like, but it's like I love it. I love when I like have a great relationship with the client. I mean, some of my clients I work with now, I've been with for like 4 or 5 years, and they're again, we're showing results, which is great. But even those times where we don't show the results or whatever, we have that partnership there, and the partnership between things is what I really, really do enjoy with a lot of the work that I do. So
Dan, knowing that your problems aren't traditional SEO problems, they're more almost the behind the scenes problems that maybe your regular day-to-day SEO doesn't think about. I guess describe how you've gone about, building a team, crafting kind of a go-to-market strategy and approach, and how you've kind of built a framework for Local SEO Guide, and like what types of heartburn or what successes you feel like you've had as you've done that, because that is, I think, a little bit of a different SEO problem than we've talked about with most guests. Most of what we talk about is very tactical or strategic, and rarely, although we've talked a little about team building and things like that, do we talk about the construction of an organization.
Yeah, so like I generally am trying to like kind of function and build out teams as like we go through them as like the service offerings or product offerings become part of our business. So like a good example is like for the past couple of years, my big focus has been around like our technical SEO programming capabilities, just like auditing and strategic stuff, as well as content and link building on like an execution end, right? I don't mention any local SEO stuff because like I feel like we've had that from day one. I brought that kind of I worked before working with Andrew. My one agency side gig was working at running SEO for an agency that had 12,000 locations on the local end, or 12,000 businesses on the local end, not locations. And so that was kind of easy to get scaled out at first. And then it was the content and link building stuff, because those are real challenges and really critical to kind of having a functioning like SEO capability. And right now, like what 2020 has been for me is we made our first full-time dev hire at the end of last year, and has been building out our kind of technical operations capabilities. Nice. So working on building our like, I've kind of talked about this a little bit at a thing, the VirtualCon event that Dan Taylor and Salt Agency had a couple of years ago, but working on building out our internal like automation capabilities in business, like business efficiency processes, right? Like, so learning Python right now is like super hot, right? Like scaling, automation, all that stuff is like super trendy. And that's because SEOs have to like do all of that stuff themselves or work in-house in roles that are like not well supported or funded, or work agency side where there's no centralization of resources that they can pool, right? Like they do that. They learn Python to like be mediocre devs because they have to, not because it's like the best thing for the organization or clients, right? And so I want to solve that problem for us. And that's like my big 2020 goal, is getting all of that stuff kind of consolidated and centralized so that we can like kind of all work to scale our SEO operations in tech while not like having it centralized instead of all kinds of people doing random stuff. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's like my big challenge in life right now.
It makes a lot of sense. And I feel like we're within our company going through the same thing, where we're trying to solve some of the same problems you are, but just due to the nature of the beast and working on an agency, like everything is very externally focused. And when it comes to trying to focus on ourselves and make ourselves more efficient and figure out how we can scale offerings, like we don't have, for example, the benefit of a developer who could build something out like that. So we've got to be scrappy and figure out, not because we love and want to learn Python, but we've got to figure out how we can make ourselves more efficient. And we're a data-centric company, so figuring out how we can kind of fulfill that from a brand standpoint and make sure that we integrate that into everything that we do. And not only that, like we've got data literally coming out the ears, and one person could spend days and days and days, or one person can spend days and days and days doing an audit, and we're trying to figure out with our limited amount of time, how can we take that audit from 30 hours of human time to 15 hours of human time, but still get the same level of input and insights and what needs to be in place in order to do that. And those are, I think, challenges for a lot of agencies and even in-house. Definitely challenges building those constructs. Not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, when I worked at Razorfish back in 2007-8-ish area, I was a web developer, moved over to the SEO team. But the one thing the SEO team had there, which was great, was we had like a small dev team, because back then there weren't really many ranking tools. There weren't really many, there was no deep crawl. There was nothing like that. So we actually had a team that would build those tools out for us, it was awesome. Thinking about it now, because I would love to have that now, right? And I feel like now we kind of just use tools. Screaming Frog's awesome for, 100 euros a year. You have like an amazing tool. But the one thing they built back then, which I always remember, was we had a distributed system through a screensaver that did all our rankings. So we asked everyone at that time. Razorfish was pretty big. They had like people all around the country, and we put it out there and had as many people as we could install a screensaver on their computer. And when their computer wasn't being used, we can run rankings through their computer. So that was kind of like fun things that we did in the past. Now you have proxy servers and systems out there, and ranking tools are pretty cheap these days. Depends which one to use, but it was cool building some of those tools, and I see that now moving towards the data side. Instead of doing the scraping and pulling that out, it's like, how do we take all these different data sources and get some information out of it?
Exactly. Yeah. How do you aggregate data, store it, and report on it? And so that was like our first kind of thing that we decided on, was like our stack. We decided a Google stack because BigQuery is like affordable, like in terms of scaling the infrastructure, very powerful, plugs into all of Google's tools, and also plugs into Data Studio really easily. And so like we have like a stack now that we can build tools inside, like SQL library queries. If we want to do like Jupyter notebooks into a data stack, we have like a thing to do it on, right? Like it just makes it so that you can start to build out a system. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Cool. So let's jump into news a little bit. It's interesting. So Google just came out and announced that Google Shopping is going to be free again. It used to be free, and then they made it into a paid like PLA services. And it was funny because it's the first time I heard a term in a while, frugal, because they totally remember seeing the frugal logo and stuff in the back. But Google announced that its shopping is now free. That means that anyone, I guess, e-commerce base can upload their feeds into the Google Shopping, and we were always able to do that, but they wouldn't display it over the paid people, of course. So now they're going to make it all free. Where I believe there is no paid version of it right now, which was good for kind of. Right now, like the paid shopping feeds kind of went into the paid media world. But now I feel like SEOs in a way can start taking back some of those feeds and making an organic function. I'm not sure what you guys feel about it or things in there, but I think it's really good for the e-commerce world to kind of level the playing field.
Yeah, this is another instance of Google. Google's been kind of on fire lately in terms of doing things, especially in light of COVID-19, that make people's lives easier. And they're, as an organization, sometimes they do talk out of both sides of their mouth, and sometimes they are a little bit like the evil empire. And recently I've been pleased with the way that they've been handling things. And this is just another example. Like, people's lives are hard right now, and everybody is to some degree suffering. Even Google is to some degree suffering as a company. But it is nice to see that somebody of their size doing their best in many cases to inform the public, and we'll get into that with Local, and also to alleviate areas where they could be making a profit, and cash-strapped businesses right now have a way to advertise their products without having to pay. And the other question I was going to ask is, because this has been, moved over to like paid search, it's been, for me, out of sight, out of mind. Does this mean this is SEO's thing again? Do you all feel like this is long-term?
So I kind of have like a question here, right? Because the immediate initial thought was that I want to go after paid search budgets on shopping ads, because paid search agencies that are charging a % of ad spend there are now way over leveraged and billing terribly for what they can get there, versus us who can do it for cheap and align it with the e-commerce side, right? Like the organic e-commerce side. So it's like, great, that's an amazing opportunity for SEOs. And when I said that on Twitter, some paid people said that it wasn't fully organic now, and in fact would still be primarily paid ads at first. But in the post, they said it would be, they literally used the word primarily, I believe, and referred to it as primarily organic. And so, like, I haven't checked it out. I've been too busy to dive into it. We're trying to get feeds right now, actually, from clients rather than, like, see what the SERP looks like. But I'm curious if you guys have seen how that plays out. Like, is it all organic or is it a mix?
And that's how I am. I think they weren't super specific, and I'm looking at the article now, and right, they use terms like primarily and things like that, but they were trying to look now. But yeah, I'm wondering how it comes through inside of analytics also. Like, is it going to come through as like organic shopping, or is it just going to come through as shopping? How
are they going to order them? Right? How are they going to order the shopping results if they ordered them by paid previously, right? And so quality was handled by bidding, right? And all of that paid stuff, that's gone now. Yeah. Is it what the organic algorithm is going to get plugged into the organic algorithm? How are they going to order them?
That is
I have no idea.
I have no idea. I'm not going to pretend like I know. I have
no idea. No idea.
Yeah, and they don't really mention that in the article itself.
Sounds like a good test. When in doubt, test.
Yeah, they say like search results on Google Shopping tab will consist primarily of free listings, helping merchants better connect. So the ones that aren't free, do they rank first, or are they going to do like a normal paid where they put like maybe the top 3 or 4 are paid ones, then everything else that way would be organic? I guess we'll find out in the next coming weeks, as they say.
Yeah, and either way, like it's a deviation from where things were before. So like, sounds like at least they're throwing a bone to some degree to e-commerce shops and folks that are trying to put their products online. So at minimum, despite all the semantics, it seems like a good move.
Agree. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff. No, I think it's a good move for them regardless, right? They're opening up something and giving more merchants the ability to play in their ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. I think we were only seeing the people that had money for PLAs in the past. Most small companies did not, but yet there was tons of small companies that sell some decent things. So I think it's great that way. PLAs always perform well for my clients that have, I would always like cringe when they were going to do PLAs from an SEO side, because I'm like, you're going to take some of my traffic now, because your paid is one thing. I think people can skip over that. But when you actually see the picture of the product and you click that, like it just makes you want to click it. And I don't care if I have star reviews to make my, link, my organic link more clickable. I think a picture is going to be a lot better to click. So I think that's one of those things that it's going to be interesting to see how it goes, but I think it's going to help everybody out. So.
I don't click those out of principle, out of pure spite.
Because they're paid. But now if they're organic.
Pure spite on my part.
I use the right-hand product sidebar, right? Like when that gives you the particular knowledge panel for a product with all like the reviews in it and stuff. I'll use that because that's actually, I find that to be a really fantastic paid integration.
Yeah. Sweet. And then, so the next kind of news article is kind of a good segue into the local SEO topic to begin with. But I've always had questions about Yext, and good or bad, like I've never personally been in the Yext interface. I have, I have clients that use Yext, and I kind of ask like, but the clients that I work directly with there have nothing to do with it because another team is actually doing the local side of their stuff. But Spark came out and they said they have the Yext replacement service now. I guess it was something that they packaged together from things that they've had done before. But they say it's like a one-time fee rather than a recurring fee. You own your listings instead of renting the listings. Complete and proper listing cleanup, and it focuses on the most important sites. And what I've learned from things like Yext is that I know they submit to like 5 million websites, and who needs like a particular, like I don't ever go to, NebraskaYellowbook.com, to find something out. I'm always going to the big ones. Like I use an Apple phone. So like Apple Maps or Google Maps or just ask Alexa or Siri on that. And I don't know how important it is to be in all those ones there, but definitely Whitespark seems like they have a service now to kind of replace, I guess, what you can get from Yext at a cheaper rate. And that's kind of, Dan, where I wanted to kind of move this conversation into the local side of things, because I think Jake and I have a ton of questions because we're not ultra local SEOs. And I know you do more than that, but it's, working at a company called Local SEO Guide. I figure we could dive into some of these SEO topics.
Well, let's quickly, before we do that, let's pour one out. This is the last segment of the season. Let's pour one out for our homies. Our metaphorical beers we're pouring out. Our 40s, we're pouring them out right now. So, all right, proceed. Sorry, just had to reference that last segment of the season. Go. So
just to give like a disclaimer up top, that Yext has been a client of ours previously. We've done work on various of their products, blah, 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 blah. All that being said, I am very transparent about this. I don't think businesses, especially large brands, should be paying very much money at all for citation services, right? Like, I think that the discussion of like owning your listing versus renting it is like good marketing from Darren and his team over at Whitespark, but you don't own your Google My Business listing if you have it claimed. Google owns your Google My Business listing. You don't own your Yelp listing, even if you have it claimed. Yelp owns your Yelp listing, right? And so you just have a different way of getting into it. And will it be like cheaper than an ongoing agreement with? Totally. Negotiate it lower. Mm-hmm. If you have like 10,000 locations, right? Like one-time things don't really help you in a world of like that we're in right now, right? With COVID-19, constant hour changes and all this kind of stuff, right? And so, large brands, right? Top 10 retailers, they need their own solutions for these, whether it's like their own programmatic solution via the Google My Business API, Facebook API, et cetera, paid relationships with Yelp, or using something like Yext. But most businesses could invest their listings money likely on link building or content or developing their infrastructure, speeding up their site or whatever.
I feel like the benefit of a service like Yext, and Yext is very expensive for those of you that don't know. It's like, I'm not saying it's like a better or worse service, but like there are a couple of players, whether it be WhiteSpark, Moz Local, Yext, all kind of playing in the same space, which is aggregation and bulk submission and allowing you to manage your local listings in like 8 million different places from one panel. And out of all of the options available, at least from what I've seen, Yext seems like the, what is it? I'm trying to think of like a really good car. I'm not a car guy. Some of these other services seem like the Honda option, and Yext seems like the Lexus or Mercedes option from like a cost standpoint. Yet I'm often left wondering what they really do that is that much better. And not only that, I will say, like with this
scale, just so you know, the answer is scale, right? Like there's nothing like the nobody does anything better here, right? Like, and again, my two cents, right? And we generally try to convince people out of trying to pay us to do citation management or whatever. There's just better uses of the budget, right? But if you're a large brand that has to manage a lot of information and keep it correct, then that real-time scale, like that is particularly like a Yext or an Uberall solution, right? Like it requires a development infrastructure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And was going to give kudos to WhiteSpark for being I can't think of the word. Anytime I go to brands and say, you've got an opportunity to really compare your product against somebody else, and there's a lot of organic search traffic, for whatever reason, they always seem to be apprehensive about saying my brand versus competitor brand. Here's where I'm better, because for whatever reason, I don't know why. I can never imagine why. So I do commend WhiteSpark for kind of taking the killer instinct here with respect to just going right after it, whether or not their product is any better or whether or not this is truly a replacement solution is probably all marketing speak.
So the one thing to know is that sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Go for it.
I was going to say, 2 clients that I have that use Yext both have like over a thousand like brick and mortar stores. Yeah. And that's it's all automated, right? That's one reason why, like, as an SEO, I don't get my hands on that, because it's all automated. It's built into their system. If a store owner changes their hours, it goes through and then the Yext updates it throughout the system. So
exactly.
It's all automated.
Yeah. And so, you know, I think that's like, the one kind of value of any of these like tools, though, Jacob, to tell you, like the people in the local SEO space will like crap over Yext at like the drop of a hat. It's like funny, like they will. Yeah, it's like anybody that may be true for most things in the SEO space, but in the local SEO space, anytime anybody can be like Yext versus me, they're always like, no, we're better than Yext. It's like the thing. It's very funny.
And I ask everyone when they say, like, oh, no, don't use Yext. And I say, why? And they're like, well, it's really expensive. I'm like, well, what if my paid search could be really expensive, but yet my clients do it all the time. Paid search is temporary. Paid search is, it could be expensive depending on the market that you're in. But if I am a fast food, with thousands, 10,000 locations, I think they're not worried about that money as much as trying to do it with Moz Local or someone where you're in there like trying to save money. And if someone has to go through and edit all those individually, like being able to integrate into a big system like Yext, I think can really save time and maybe money at the end. Once it's automated at that point.
I mean, things like organizations like Allstate, right, that are insurance companies that have constantly changing practitioners, right? Like organizations like Ford or Toyota that have to pay for services for co-marketing programs, right? There's like all kinds of stuff other than like that. Like I agree, the like a local, regional, like smaller, medium-sized business likely has very little to gain by spending with Yext, right? They could likely just manage their GMB, buy a review software, right? Like integrate a review program, and then just letting their customers do their marketing for them. You know what I mean? Rather than some magic trick.
So let's back it out of the X conversation and let's get a little bit more basic. And this is where I'm gonna fully raise my hand. I think it is SEO is one of those things where there are little subspaces and subdisciplines, many within the space of just broad SEO. And I've always said that while as a practitioner, you almost have to be able to play at least a little bit in each and every one, that it's difficult to be a master of every single facet of SEO, and that it's usually good if you have one or two niches where you're really really strong. And I'm gonna raise my hand and admit that this is one of my areas where I'm not that strong. It's just not been an area where I've had either a passion to focus, and the clients, because I don't get to choose my clients as an agency. It would be nice if I did, but I don't tend to align towards having significant local presences. So over my career, it's either not been my primary focus, or it's been a situation where clients that I've worked on that do have big local presences, they're either managing it in-house or have somebody else managing it. So it's never been my purview. I've never been forced to get down and dirty into every single detail of local, which I think is perfectly okay. And for those people that feel like you have to be good at everything, no, you don't. You can be successful in SEO without knowing every single thing. So I'm raising my hand and saying, I don't know nearly as much as Jeff or Dan when it comes to local. So I want to back this up and say, if you're approaching, could be a small business, a medium business, or a large business, and they need local SEO advice, where do you start?
So this is going to be my Dan local SEO rant, right? And this is like my big thing in the local space recently. So when you say that you don't have a lot of local experience, my guess is what you mean you don't have a lot of Google My Business or citation specific experience. Most people, that's what they mean. They may mean they don't have localized organic search experience, but they don't necessarily mean that, right? They mean they don't have the GMB and citation component of it. But the local organic component of search is such a more important aspect of SEO these days than what's going on GMB and your domain and all of the stuff happening on your domain drive your Google My Business rankings much more than anything else does these days, and way more than things like citations do. And so having experience, my local SEO experience comes primarily from working on things like large, massive directories or aggregator sites that sell used cars, or, online marketplaces that do food delivery or stuff like that, right? We also do the multi-location brands, but local SEO guide as a brand name actually comes from Andrew has worked a ton on directories and local publications, and it comes from the localized organic component of it. And so I think that there has been a long misnomer for a long time that people don't understand local SEO because they don't get GMB. But that is such an irrelevant part of, or a smaller part of local SEO these days. I don't know if you guys know Jared McKiernan, SEO on Twitter, dude in the space. I would consider him one of the most brilliant SEOs, knows nothing about GMB, does SEO for DoorDash now. Or Tyler Reardon, who used to do SEO for CarMax, again, knows nothing about GMB, but a brilliant person when it comes to understanding localized organic search and SEO, right? But not they know a lot more about me than a lot of those topics, right? And have made millions and millions of dollars for huge brands on, geo plus query searches, right? And so that's my rant in terms of most people, when they think about local SEO, don't think about it holistically enough, and they're leaving tons and tons and tons of money on the table.
Yeah, and I think
for themselves and clients.
I think you're right. And my commentary was absolutely specifically to the GMB platform and platforms like GMB within other search engines or other sites. But one area where I do definitely work, and you're right, people do forget, is your own website, right? If you're a big brand that does maybe a lot of e-commerce, but you also have a brick and mortar presence like local SEO also means local SEO on your website too. And you're right.
It also means tracking e-commerce transactions through GMB, right? Like this is a huge thing we push for our like large like top X whatever blah 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 retail like brand retailers is people will do brand searches, right? They'll like click on a knowledge panel for a physical location to like go to the location and see the hours, and then they'll like start clicking around and buy things. Like, why aren't you racking that as a transaction and revenue that comes in through your channel? Like, you put that thing there, you own it, right? And that's just like there's enough revenue that you can drive and show just through tracking e-com transaction through like branded searches on GMB to carve off budget to pay for like an entire local program. You know what I mean? And so like, so many brands don't the having a locator, right, and a page per location for all of like the different locations they want to target didn't have that for the longest time, right? Like, and we're focusing on GMB. Dude, build out your freaking location pages, right? And then the GMB win is your like Los Angeles GMB location has a local landing page on it, right? Like, so ranks better, more revenue, better user experience, right? Just like it's marketing, right? Not just SEO. It's good marketing.
So outside of just the rant, is that the advice that you would give from a local SEO standpoint when you start with most people, or like are most people's problems when they engage different than that?
No, most people like, so honestly, like most brands, their SEO problems is that their local SEO problems is that their sites are technically broken, or that they aren't going after to have they don't have the keywords on the page, right? Like they don't have the information architecture or the pages or content to target what they want to rank for, where they want to rank for it. And like, I mean, you know, large organizations getting all of that stuff done, the costs, budgeting, implementation is a huge problem there, right? And so that's usually like they have easy wins like that. Medium-sized businesses, it's usually like the opposite, right? They've had like a gajillion different local SEOs and done a gajillion different things, and they just need somebody to be like, you have all of the stuff, consolidate it down to what works, and like shed things. You know what I mean? Like they've gone through. Medium-sized businesses in this space have gone through so many SEO vendors, whether it's like local or organic. You know what I mean?
You know, one question I always get, and one thing that we almost always see, it's actually two. And Jeff kind of touched on it earlier. One of the big features of these aggregators is I'm going to submit you to everywhere. Well, okay, that's great. But how many people are really on Yellow Pages, California? So like, is that something that matters? That's question one. And then two is we're going to make sure all of your information is consistent and up to date and accurate. And I understand in today's climate, I totally understand having up to date and accurate information. And not only that, but like consistent naming and whatever. But like things that, like, for example, a Moz Local points out is that your business name is like slightly different on this site versus another site. And I'm like, is that really going to move the needle? Like the basic NAP consistent, or name, address, phone information, consistency stuff. So part of me wonders, you know, when we do that type of work and cleanup, is it really worth it? And does it really move the needle for most businesses?
I don't think so personally, at least not in terms of a marketing or acquisition metric, right? And so this is like, I think one of the problems is that like, I don't disagree with like the automated listings management and citation management from like a brand perspective, but I don't think marketers should be paying for it out of their acquisition budgets because it doesn't do anything for their metrics at the end of the day, right? Whether you're an agency or an in-house person, you're paying a ton of money for something that doesn't move the needle for you at all, right? And so this is like one of those things that just needs to move over to like customer support or some other non-acquisition based budget, right? Because like you're saying, it's important from a customer experience perspective, but from an SEO perspective, from an acquisition perspective, 1%, right? Like just to give you a number.
No, and that's kind of where I have one client who is doubling down with a company like Yext, and you know, doing all the citation stuff was great, but they're also I guess Yext offers a service, and not to keep harping on Yext, but they offer a service where they build local landing pages on your website. So they currently have landing pages on their site for every location. They're just not very good, and I've been fighting that battle to we need to update these pages, we need to get some more information on them, we need to yada yada yada. And then they came back recently, the team that does work with Yext, they're going to take all their local pages off their local domain and going into a subdomain, which will be like locations.domain.com, and that's all going to be like a Yext CMS now, so to integrate with Yext that way. And they say they're going to be able to get a lot more of this information on there, but my first thing with them was hey, I'd rather not have it on a subdomain, rather have it as a subfolder the way it currently is set up. We can just build this out nicer, and it wouldn't be as much time, but they don't want to manage it, so they're handing everything over to Yext to do. How do you feel something a service like that? I think Rio SEO does it also, where they build these subdomains with all the stored locations on them. Does it matter as much? I know there's always the big battle, should it be blog.domain or domain.com/blog? Does that matter as much in the local space as it does in kind of your normal organic space?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like this organization did not do a good job in speccing out their requirements when they went over to get the software. You know what I mean? And so I wouldn't trust anybody to build this stuff out without the tight requirements. You know what I mean? Because then you're just going to get to development at the end of the day that's written towards they're going to develop towards the spec they get, which is if they don't know if the client doesn't know what they want, they're not going to put it in there, and you're not going to get anything out of it at the end. Yeah,
I think they're putting all their eggs in Yext basket, saying Yext is we're going to do this, and they're all right, you take it over.
Yeah, I mean, this is no different than organizations that work with Bright Edge or Conductor and get that same kind of treatment. You know what I mean? And so the costs are astronomical. You pay for the name versus the work. So I would be less concerned about subdomain versus subfolder versus the automated. So I'm not a fan of automated updates just in general. I don't care about Yelp or anything like that, but none of our clients, I have a rule, none of our clients have automated Google My Business Management. Just not a thing we if we can stop that, if we can tell them no and they will listen, we will tell them no, right? Because it's so important. And if a machine makes it do something poorly like that and nobody's checking it, you'll lose more from the machine error than you will not being fast enough with a new piece of store hour, right? You just need the ability to hit a button and push via the GMB API right away. You don't need it to run on cron jobs or anything automated.
Right.
And so the domain running on that stuff too also would make me nervous, right? Because what happens if you have some weird naming collision between the provision hosting that whatever the provider is, Yext, Bright Edge, or anybody else, and the actual CMS, and now your title tags are all blank, right? Yeah. And it has nothing to do with the system or what they're getting, and everything to do with just shoving two pieces of disparate technology together.
In those situations where, when you go from one of these big platforms where the huge benefit is scale and quickness down to managing whether it be via an API or managing each platform individually, manually, how do you scale doing it the manual way when you're dealing with a lot of locations? And do you ever find that when you're working with organizations where there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, that causes problems with people getting up or getting in? Maybe if you work with franchise owners, for example, and they get in and try to manage their own information and they maybe do it wrong. Is that ever a problem?
So there's a difference between having a managed process and automation, right? And it happening automatically. And so when I say hit a button to make everything go live, I mean, we can push 10,000 updates automatically via the GMB API all at once, but we don't want it to do it off of a GET request or something to that feed, right? Just because somebody put something new there, we don't want it to happen. We want it to be a human controlled process at a certain point. And so that way, things like the auto updates, et cetera, like store hour updates and catastrophes can still happen and scale, but there's just a check on what makes something go live in the system. Just so you know, this is a kind of a not prolific, but a non unnormal problem with Google My Business in terms of having multiple things like Yext, Moz, rep.com, all these things plugged into GMB, various things, and then there's like a conflict of rules, or one of the APIs is functioning improperly, and it's updating your information that you don't know without it like getting your consent on it, right? Because it's right in the system, it's happening right at it's wrong on the output, and there's no transparency with Google what's getting pushed there. And so like on the agency side, like we want to be the one that like help man those keys for the client, right? So to make it so that they can't like nuke their own thing via poor permissions, right? And work with them on like what does permissioning look like? Because this all works better when brands do it themselves, right? They just don't know how.
So go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, the one thing I noticed in with local over kind of your traditional organic is that there are different ranking factors, right? Like we look into it as like location is one of them, right? If I'm searching for a pizza, of course they want to show me a pizza place or like where to buy pizza or where to order pizza. They want to show something that's closer. What other kind of ranking factors that may be different in your traditional SEO are there besides like, location in general?
So in the pack results themselves, right? Like in GMB, the corpus of like the text of reviews matters a ton, just a ton. So Google, if like, I don't know if you've like played around with this recently, you can like go and search within reviews to pull out like reviews that are about a topic, which just shows you that Google can like keyword mine reviews. And then when you want to ask a question in some of the FAQ, the Q&As, it will surface reviews that answer that question. So not only can they search them, but they can match content with the reviews. So like, obviously they're using it in rankings, right? I mean, come on. And I did this experiment where I like looked at, I love Mexican food. And so like, I want to know why like, why do Mexican restaurants that all have like a ubiquitous menu rank for different specialties. And of course, restaurants that ranked for burrito had a disproportionately high number of burrito references as a part of the corpus, right? Not like they had 50 burrito references versus 75, like they had 100 reviews, 90 of them were about burritos, right? Like they were more likely to rank for burritos. So shocker, right? And so like I would work on that stuff, right? And that's also going to drive you revenue, right? That's going to get you customers and you're going to rank.
Do you think that there's any connection there? And not to say that every small or medium-sized business is this technologically savvy, but with things like schema and structured data, and I'm thinking like both local schema as well as if you're using schema to say, hey, my business specializes in burritos. Do you think that helps on the local side at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like having links with the anchor text that are burritos, right? Like that helps, right? And I think that having title tags or a page that has burrito content on it helps for sure, right? I don't think that like having schema markup that says that you're about burritos helps per se, right? Because, Google's really filtering out all of these like, I say user, but I mean like business generated signals, the like self-serving signals. They try to filter all of those out, right? They try to get crowdsourced signals. And so, there are a million ways to get crowdsourced signals about particular specialties that you have, right?
I never thought that when we began season 2 that we would end it by talking about burritos, but I kind of like the direction we're going here.
Yeah.
I could help.
So I think I've got 2 last questions, and then I think we'll wrap it up. One, how hard do you scoff when clients come to you and ask you for a near me strategy?
Oh my gosh, I love it. So this is like 5 years ago, but I was like, for a while I played around with like how to exploit near me as like a ranking ability to rank for it. And so like you could just put it in the like 2015, you could just put it in the title tag and you'd rank for near me query, near me plus thing queries. And this is when Miley Oye, I believe is how you pronounce her name, was still at Google. And I was at State of Search speaking on stage about this. And I'm like, look at this. You can just like stuff your keyword tag with your title tag with near me and rank for it. Look at all the brands that are doing it. And while I was doing that, she was staring daggers at me. Oh my gosh, I have never felt on the spot before. It was just like, it was brutal. So I love it. I love exploiting Google's like inability to do near me stuff. Just put it in the title tag.
The awkward part that I always found with near me is the semantic verbiage. Like, should I put near me in the title tag, or should I put near you, because I'm targeting you, not me? So I always got hung up, and I'm like, that just sounds really stupid if I'm the searcher and I'm looking for things near me. I would really want somebody to say burritos near you, dummy, not near me. I'm like, what are they talking to themselves? It's a little weird.
This is why you got to test it though, right? Like, because it like, I agree with you, and people get hung up on that all the time with the verbiage, but it surely works, which means that there's user validation, right? And so, we got the internet that we all created, unfortunately.
Yeah. When in doubt, test it. Okay. So my last question, and then we'll end with the final question, and I'll let Jeff do that, is it's stemming from a question a client once asked me, and it is right along the lines of knocking somebody off. So it's perfect. It's perfect for our season finale and coming to the end.
You said someone wasn't going to get knocked off.
Right. Well, we're going to see. So with respect to local, and this client just asked me in general, if you had one SEO bullet in your gun, what would that bullet be? And I would ask that question for local. If you had one big thing, just the one big thing that you find that moves the needle more than anything else, what advice would you give for that bullet, so to speak?
Oh, it's the regular SEO bullet, get links.
And how do you do, I guess, how do you do that? How do you get local links? Links are hard.
Any links, but yeah, local links would be great. So we have there's like the discussion on, do you want local links from local businesses? I think that's like a good discussion to have. I am like anti-sponsorships, because sponsorships are like a rental of a link. This is like getting way into link building, but
right.
You have to pay for it every year, right? So your link your link graph is a thing. It's competitive with other other sites, that they all grow, right? Yours plateaus at the end, and having that same spend, then it goes down. Versus anybody else that's doing link building, they're just getting more and more and more and more and more links, right? So like the cumulative effect of it is much less effective, right, in terms of dollar amount. And it's not very scalable. So it's like a good strategy for like SMBs or VAs that really care about like ranking locally. But for anything that cares about like commercial queries, even like local markets or stuff like that, right? Like you want to do just actual link building.
Cool. Jeff, take us home. Jeff,
cool.
Take us home.
Sweet. So we finish every podcast with a question that we like to ask all our guests, and I'm going to do two with you. But the first one will be SEO related. The second one will be gardening related. So
there you go.
So first, someone's new getting into SEO. Today's day one at the job. You hired them at Local SEO. They don't know anything about SEO. What's the first piece of advice you would give them?
SEO is always the lowest priority until it isn't.
That statement is so real. I've got a couple of clients where, oh man, that statement is so real.
I need that on a t-shirt, actually.
Good Lord.
It's an Andrew Shotland original. That is his number one like Zen statement about SEO.
That's amazing. And I guess the same sort of question when it comes to gardening. I know you're crazy, so if anyone is interested in backyard gardening, I used to have a Facebook page called the Luella Backyard Farm, because I used to kind of go nuts with all the stuff. Since I've moved, I haven't really done it here yet in my new house, though I just got some trees removed, so now I can actually start building that out. What is and I actually wrote an article one time about how organic gardening is just like organic SEO, and kind of based like if you garden and you use Miracle Grow and you're going to burn out your garden, just like if you're, doing some fake things there with your SEO. But so in gardening, what is like your, like a secret tip to have like better vegetables growing in your garden?
So number one, come join my SEO garden Slack that I run with Rachel Anderson, who's a technical SEO over at Deep Crawl. We have about like 40, 50 people in it from
Nice.
the US, some in Europe, just a bunch of SEO dorks talking gardening.
Great.
But yeah, I'll send you the, well, hit me. Actually, I have your email on the calendar invite. I'll just send you an invite. So my number one secret, and this is like maybe known if people follow me on Twitter, and for sure known in SEO Garden Slack, is I am like a compost tea addict. I am just like totally obsessed with the compost tea, and particularly rainwater compost tea, because it has all that good bacteria. And so don't know what compost tea is you take water and some type of bacteria source, whether it's like compost or like grass clippings. Chicken shit is a popular one to use, and you'd like throw it in the water, put in an air stone with an air pump, so it creates a highly oxygenated water environment, and then you throw in blackstrap molasses or some type of, I use blackstrap molasses, but some type of sugar in order to supercharge it creates the anaerobic, I believe it is, the good bacteria that like oxygen, not the bad bacteria, become super multiplied in the compost tea. And so then you can dump it into your plant's roots, and it's basically just like dumping in a ton of like compost after the fact. So you can create bacterial colonies. The strongest will survive. And if anybody knows anything about gardening, most plants, like, they do well because they have good roots. And so yeah, compost tea, Dan's number one secret.
I got a whole bunch of blackstrap molasses, but that's to make room with right now.
Ooh,
but I
fun.
will be using it. Yeah. But next year when I get my gardening up, that's I have a worm farm that I have to set up again, so I can.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I love the vermiculture.
Awesome. And then also doing some compost tea. I had to get my compost bin set back up. So.
Oh yeah, so compost is the third most popular channel in the SEO Garden Slack. We have a lot of self-sufficient things. Chickens are, I believe, number 4.
Yeah, I used to have 8 of them, so it was nice.
Oh, I want to get 3. Yeah, I want to get 3.
So
Cool.
I know Jake's like, "What's going on right now?"
No, I mean, hey, this is all. I used to tease my dad when I was a young lad all the time about his passion for growing flowers and getting out in the garden and doing things like that. I'm like, Dad, that's not very manly. When, I mean, keep in mind, I'm like 16 or 17 or 18. What do I know about the world? And here I am in my late 30s, and I love. Now, I'm not on the level that you guys are. Like, I'm not into composting or anything like that, but we're going to be putting in a vegetable garden this summer, and so I love. It's like my favorite thing to like get out and get in the garden and watch things grow. Like, my wife doesn't go to the flower shop; it's me. And I look back on my 16-year-old self, and I'm like, what an idiot I was for giving my dad shit about that, all that. He just laughed at me, and he goes, "He'll understand someday." And my son ever gives me shit about it, I'm just going to laugh at him and say the same thing. But anyways, so this is not where I imagined ending the season, but it is a great place to end. So Dan, where can people find you?
At Dan Leibson on Twitter, or if you want to email me, just dan@localseoguide.com.
Cool. And thank you for joining. Thank you to all the listeners who built us up during the season. We've gathered a nice little audience, a niche audience, and we're very thankful for everybody. This season was really awesome, and I'm sure that we'll have some videos or some thoughts that we put out about things that we learned during the season, kind of after the fact. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to season 3 coming back here in a couple of months.
Yeah, I think next season we're going to take on the Rogan experience. We're going to take
we're going after Joe Rogan, and I fully expect people to be carrying us off on their shoulders by the end of next season. That's kind of what that's how I imagine this season ending, like being carried off on people's shoulders to great applause, and in the end we're talking about chickens and gardening and whatever. But that's okay. All right, everybody. So until season 3, thank you for listening. Thank you so much for listening to the Page 2 podcast. If you'd like to find out more about the show or listen to more episodes, visit us at page2podcast.fm. That's page, the number 2, podcast.fm. Our episodes are also available on a number of other platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Deezer, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, TuneIn, and more. Additionally, you can also listen to our show on our new YouTube channel. If you'd like to become a sponsor or would like to be interviewed, get in touch with us at thepage2podcast@gmail.com. Until next time, happy optimizing.